Hello. I'm not going to speak very much in Polari, but I'm just going to talk about how I became aware of Polari, which would have been a long time ago now. And like everybody else, I would have listened to the Divine Kenneth Williams on Round the Horn. So I knew there was something going on, but it wasn't until I was 15-ish, which would have been 1968, my God, that I ventured into a public house in Kingston upon Thames called The Crown. Now, The Crown had something of a reputation, especially the saloon bar, oddly enough, which I never once ventured into in all the years that I lived in Kingston. The saloon bar was where the heavies, the criminals, and the teddy boys all used to hang about. However, the public bar was where the less threatening members of society used to congregate. And I started going there with the local socialist youth group. You know, I signed up. I went to see the battleship Potemkin. I had my card. And we used to meet in the Crown Public House. And it was in the Crown Public House that I first became aware of people dropping strange words into the conversation. Now, the Crown, not uniquely at the time, didn't have an indoor public toilet. The public toilet was outside, and in actual fact, it was a public toilet used by all and sundry that passed. It was maintained by the council and all that sort of thing. During the day, very much a public toilet. In the evenings, very much something completely different used to go on in there. And people would drop little words into the conversation. They wouldn't say, "Oh, I'm going to the toilet." They'd say, "I'm just popping into the cottage." And somebody else would say, "Oh, you won't see her for a while." And that's how it used to sort of infiltrate, really. You'd know who were sort of kindred spirits. The only two people in the Crown that I ever heard really speaking Polari were two working girls, strangely enough, who were, incredibly old, probably in their late 30s or early 40s. Incredibly old to me as a callow youth. But they would talk, and it was obviously that they would be talking about their clients, but nobody else could understand them very much. And they really, really used the Polari. But no, I got to understand it literally through going into the Crown. You'd go next door into the cottage in the evening, and no glory holes in there. It's too well maintained by the council for that sort of thing. But you'd have little peepholes, little slots, and somebody would pass pencil scribbled note on a piece of eisel medicated through the hole. Very much the grinder of its day, really, if you come to think of it. What you got, what you like, that sort of thing. And if you were very lucky, you'd be in there in the evening, and somebody would try the door, and the foot would come under the door, and you would open up the bedroom door, and in they'd pop for a little while. And then you'd go back and have your glass of beer with the boys, so to speak. Anyway, a bit later in 68, probably, towards the end of 68, 69, I met Paul. Now, Paul was about 5 years older than me. Very much a man of the world. Very swish. Oh, God, swish. Oh, God, very. Very confident. Very out. Probably the first really out gay man that I ever came to meet. And what's more, Paul had a car. He had a car. Nobody had a car in those days. And we could get in Paul's car at a weekend and we would go up west. And Paul sort of took me under his wing and started to introduce me to places. The very first place he took me was a pub in Chelsea. I have no idea what it was called nowadays, but I can remember it. We walked in and it went quite quiet. It was obvious that we were fresh meat to the place, though I think Paul had been there before because he knew people. But we walked in and I can remember the clientele quite clearly. They all had sort of beige Macs on and white polo neck jumpers, and they all spoke Polari. It was lovely, and of course at closing time there was a Muse flat round the corner which had very good parties. Went there a couple of times, I think, but that was that. Anyway, Paul and I, from there, we would go up west. You'd go up to Berwick Street and all around there. We'd hang out on the Dilly. And again, a lot of people weren't speaking a lot of Polari. I suppose, this was sort of getting towards the end of it, the late 60s, early 70s. Things were changing. You would certainly see things, and people were not very keen on femmes. After the Act had changed, of course, it was, in a way, it seemed more difficult. People were more worried because the police were picking people up for importuning all over the place. You only had to sort of wave at a friend, and you'd be worried. You'd be worried that you were going to get nicked for it. Strangely enough, in my house as a child, the police were always referred to as Lily. Whether that's something to do with my father and his merchant navy service, I've no idea. But yes, the police were Lily. But there we are. Anyway, going on, Polari was never for me. I never spoke a great deal of Polari, but I had a few words. And a few words is all that you needed to get to know somebody, really. Just drop it into the conversation, little word or two here and there. And Bob's your uncle, you had a friend for the evening. Anyway, that's me done with this, I think, so I'll leave you to it. Ta-ra!